Hello! What's going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 choices of potential underdogs in the World Cup. But this time I'm joined with a special guest. I'm joined with Jordan BUHRS, who does a lot of similar videos to me, actually. So make sure you go check him out. We also did a video on his channel talking about the top 5 potential favorites for the World Cup. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. But over here, we got to discuss the underdogs. Now, obviously, everybody's got their own spectrum to classify an underdog. But for this video in particular, we're only going to be discussing teams that were in pot 3 and 4 of the draw. Jordan and I will each create our own top 5 lists, and we'll kind of go in order together, starting at the bottom with number 5. But as always, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Who are your top 5 underdogs for the World Cup?
In my 5th position for the underdogs, it's going to be Ghana. Now, Ghana are in a group with Portugal, Uruguay, and South Korea, which, in my opinion, opens this group up quite a bit. Don't forget about Ghana and Uruguay's 2010 drama, where Ghana got knocked out by Uruguay in that famous penalty where Suarez basically became the keeper for Uruguay. Something else that excites me about Ghana is that they have 3 to 4 upcoming players that have now recently said in the press that they will be playing for Ghana in the World Cup. Those players are the talented Callum Hudson-Odoi, Lamptey from Brighton, Inaki, and Nico Williams. I think Ghana didn't have much of a shout, but because they're in a pool with Uruguay and South Korea, I think Uruguay or South Korea could draw to Portugal, which could burst this group wide open. For that reason, I think Ghana have a chance to make it out of this group stage, beating out Uruguay and South Korea, and head deep into this competition.
I originally predicted that they could potentially pull an upset and make it out of the group. I also would consider Ghana to be a potential underdog in this World Cup. I don't know if they are my top 5 list as of now, but I definitely think that's a good shout from you. My 5th pick is probably going to have to be Tunisia. On paper, Tunisia don't look all that, but as a unit, they are very structured and have a lot of underrated players, actually. Some youngsters that are also going to want to pull through in the tournament. Not to mention, we all know about the infamous Champions Curse. They are in a group with France. We say it every year, that it just seems absolutely ridiculous for the previous champions to get knocked down in the group. And it especially feels weird to bank on France not being the ones to do so, as their squad looks fantastic and the depth is nuts. But we gotta keep in mind, we said the same thing about Spain in 2014. We said the same thing about Germany in 2018. When you got the likes of Denmark also pulling through spectacularly in these major tournaments, we saw they made it all the way to the semifinals in the Euros. They didn't do that badly in the last World Cup either and put off a good fight against France. They also just beat France in the Nations League. But to get more on task with Tunisia, they have been spectacular in the Africa Cup of Nations despite having all this coronavirus outbreaks, especially in the group stage. They barely hung on there, but then they were able to beat Nigeria in the round of 16s, which was a huge upset for so many people. I definitely wouldn't write off Tunisia, especially due to the fact that their last match in the group stage is against France, a script there could happen. Australia also wouldn't be a bad shot. I know some people are expecting them to prevail out of the group, but due to the fact that they had a pretty shaky start in the World Cup qualifiers, it makes me a bit doubtful for them. We'll see, though. It's the World Cup. Anything's possible. But I am banking on some kind of World Cup curse to happen, and I feel like Tunisia might be the team to squeeze out along with Denmark.
I completely agree with you. I think Tunisia are from Africa. They're one of those bigger teams within Africa. They also recently just beat Chile and Japan quite convincingly in international friendlies. I said it in my prediction video, if it would not surprise me to see Tunisia kick France out of this World Cup. It sounds crazy to say, as you said, but I definitely think Tunisia is a massive underdog, and I actually might be putting some money on them, to be honest with you. So then in my 4th pick, as an underdog, I have Wales. Now, Wales obviously beat Ukraine to qualify for the World Cup. It's also Gareth Bale's first and last, probably, World Cup or big international tournament. So he's really going to want to make a mark on this tournament. Obviously being in a group with England, USA and Iran. But we saw England in the UEFA Nations League absolutely butcher their games against Hungary. Wales can definitely beat England. And then Iran, like you said earlier, I think Iran was an underdog until that game against, or for me personally, until that game up against Algeria, where they lost to their B team and kind of fell apart. So for me, Wales can firstly definitely make it out of this group. It might be quite tight against the USA. I do think a lot of people are sleeping on Wales. They don't see the big names, but Wales as a team do come together very well as a unit, and they do their best when they are under pressure. So for me, my fourth underdog pick, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them kick out USA and maybe even draw beat England in the group stages, is Wales.
That's actually a very solid pick. I think there has to be an underdog chosen in that group, actually. Like you mentioned, we did see England have a terrible international break last time around in the Nations League, losing 4-0 to Hungary. USA is looking a bit more confident now, but still, you never know when Berhalter's tactics are gonna crash completely. So there is a solid chance for Wales and Iran to compete. And you mentioned a lot of good points about Wales. They were the one team that actually had a solid international break the last time around, obviously getting that World Cup spot. But since you mentioned Wales, I'm just going to make this interesting and talk a little bit about Iran and have them as my fourth pick. I am starting to doubt Iran a tad bit because, like you mentioned, their last international break was an absolute disaster, not securing a bunch of friendly matches, and then once they did, they lost to Algeria's B team. Now, while that looks a bit doubtful, we cannot forget about how successful Iran's World Cup qualifier run was. A lot of the fans seem to be doubting now Dragan Skocic, their manager, as Carlos Queiroz stepped down from the Egyptian national team. They want him back, and I don't blame them because in 2018, Iran had a great run. They were the most exciting team in the group stage. Yes, they got knocked out of the group stage, but they were in a very tough group with Portugal and Spain and nearly made it out. That belief and hope that we saw in Iran in 2018 makes me still have some belief in them to produce in the World Cup this year, especially with that phenomenal attack that has definitely evolved since 2018. Taremi and Azmoun, I think that is one of the most deadliest striker partnerships in the World Cup at the moment. You've also got the likes of Jahang Banch, who gels the team together. And like I said, this group just has the potential for the underdogs to shine. But so many people seem to be sleeping on Iran, and whether or not they make it out of the group stage, I think they'll put off great fights against all these teams.
I think adding on to your point, this is probably the most interesting group for me in the World Cup. We have England, who just quite frankly aren't in very good form at the moment. We have USA, who if they pitch up can make it out of the group stage. We have Wales, who can do the exact same thing as USA. And then Iran, with their potent attack, can definitely bust some walls down in the defenses of England, USA and Wales and really make this group interesting. So we could potentially see two underdogs making it out of this group, with an upset being England and USA not making it out. So it'll just be very interesting to see. Now my third underdog is Poland. They seem to be smaller than what most people give them credit for. You got to remember that they have Lewandowski. They're going to build their whole attack around Lewandowski, and if he has a good tournament, I can definitely see Poland going far and deep into this tournament. They are, however, in a pool with Argentina, Mexico and Saudi Arabia. Now I definitely think they can beat Saudi Arabia. Mexico, on the other hand, are notorious for making it out of the group stages, so that is going to add an extra layer of difficulty for Poland. And then Argentina being one of the best teams in the world, I don't see them finishing anywhere but number one in this group. For me, Poland didn't have a great Nations League. They won one, they drew to Netherlands, and then they ended up getting thrashed 6-1 by Belgium. It was good to see Belgium come back into form, but I do think Poland are one of those underdogs that if teams underestimate them, they can definitely cause a couple upsets. It is going to be difficult for them to make it out of this group, especially with Mexico there and their notorious moves of getting out of the group stages in a World Cup. However, I do think they can do it. All you have to do is look back to how they qualified for the World Cup against Sweden. They beat them 2-0, so they definitely have the class to take down Mexico and maybe even cause some problems for Argentina. So my third underdog has to go to Poland.
Out of all the quote-unquote underdogs in these pots, they look like one of the better teams on paper. They got one of the best strikers in the world, solid midfielder and defensive options, great goalkeeper. Poland just seemed to tank it in the international tournaments. That's why I'm a bit doubtful for them, but they did secure that new manager, Michnovic. He still looks like he's figuring things out for the national team at the moment, experimenting a lot. If Poland figure out that structure, I think they can definitely compete in this group. I agree. With the likes of Mexico also looking like they're struggling a bit recently under Tata Martino. The one team I just cannot see them beating, to be honest, is Argentina, as they are on an unbeaten streak at the moment. I know some Polish fans are hopeful. Earlier, I was tempted to have Canada as my number 3 pick because they were phenomenal in the CONCACAF qualifiers. So many great players. They could potentially pull an upset in their group. without a doubt, but I can't ignore Poland. The fact that they are in pot 3, I gotta put them in my list. So for me, Poland is also that number 3 team. My second biggest underdog to bank on is Senegal. They are the best team in Africa on paper. Their group looks pretty promising. Netherlands will be a challenge. Don't underestimate Ecuador. Don't underestimate the host. But with the quality Senegal have, with what they've done in the Africa Cup of Nations was also spectacular. Some people saying their run to the final was a bit easy, but you got to give this side props. Sadio Mane, fantastic forward. Idrissa Gueye, solid midfielder. One of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. Mendy. On their game, Senegal can definitely cause damage. And they definitely are a side to watch in this World Cup. They might have to face England in the round of 16s though. So we'll see what happens there. But maybe, just maybe, Senegal can break history. No African team has made it past the quarterfinals. Senegal could be the first team to do so.
We saw that they could beat Egypt 2 games in a row to firstly beat them in the Africa Cup of Nations final and then to kick them out of the World Cup. You also can't forget about Koulibaly, who will be making a big impact in this World Cup. I am also banking on Senegal. They're my biggest underdog. I think they will come second in this group. They could even rival Netherlands for that first place. Maybe they tie on points, but like you said, do not exclude the hosts and Ecuador. Ecuador being a very feisty South American side, and the hosts, only one host has ever been eliminated in the group stage. But I definitely agree with you. Senegal is definitely one of the biggest underdogs and a team that you should definitely keep your eye on.
I'll go on to my first pick now. Serbia. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is probably their best chance to get out of the group stage. They haven't done it yet, but with the squad they have now, it's definitely possible. Switzerland aren't looking as great as before. Yes, they are one of the most underrated sides in Europe. They pulled through spectacularly in the Euros, making it all the way to the quarterfinals. With the side Serbia is now, and with Switzerland's recent performances in the Nations League and international friendlies, lots of their players at club level also not turning up to the same caliber. This is Serbia's chance. They have some of the best attackers. Dusan Vlahovic, Mitrovic, Jovic, solid midfielders like Milenkovic, Savic, and Kostic. The only struggle potentially Serbia could face is their defense, but they do still have time to structurally improve before the World Cup starts. I think this is Serbia's chance to take advantage of that attack they have and that creative midfield. Milenkovic Savic was one of the best midfielders in the Serie A last season. I'm a Serbia.
I completely agree with you. However, they are my second pick. I might be slightly biased because I am from the continent of Africa, but I agree with all those points you said about Serbia. I think the group they've been placed into is also going to help them make it a little bit further in this tournament. Unfortunately, I don't think Cameroon are going to be doing too much in this tournament. We saw they had a little bit of a disappointing Africa Cup of Nations. They finished third and they were the host country, and they did it in very unspectacular fashion. Then you've got Brazil, who undoubtedly are one of the best teams in the world. And then you have Switzerland. I was on a knife edge to whether I pick Serbia or Switzerland in my prediction video. However, I agree with you. I think Serbia do have the edge with Switzerland's lack of form recently. I can definitely see Serbia going through, maybe even to the quarterfinals. Depends who they get in the round of 16.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are our top 5 picks. Some similarities, some differences. I feel like Senegal and Serbia are going to be too many popular choices amongst this list. But as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Shout out to Jordan for joining me for this video. Go check him out. I'll leave his channel and that video we did together in the description below. Make sure you hit the like button on this video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care. Laco noite.